Welcome back, everyone, to the JW Thoughts Studio, where cats roam and we talk about some Jehovah's Witness things. Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different, and that is going to be making a tier list on the various preaching methods. So I heard something that 50% of polls say that 50% of people like random tier lists. So therefore, that means 100% of you would like this. So let's get into it. So you can see, I'll pull it up on the screen here. You got all the various ways with our little cartoon figures. Some of them are repeated, but couldn't be bothered to make a new one. So let's get straight away into it and start with what is the most common method of preaching done by Jehovah's Witnesses. It is what they are recognized for, and that is the house-to-house ministry. For that, I'm going to give it a B tier. It is the most common form of preaching, and therefore you develop sort of a comfort with it. It doesn't seem awkward after you do it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, knocking on people's door. Hi, how are you today? Sharing a message from the Bible, blah, blah, blah. So just because of that, I think, you know what? We can give it a solid B tier, like right there in the middle. Anyway, moving on to our next one is going to be parking lot witnessing. Parking lot witnessing is not fun at all. Where's parking lot? Here we are. Yeah, we're going to give that a D tier. I'll just give you a quote because I think those are actually pretty funny. Both of these are from the Kingdom Ministry. The first one is from 2012. And they just go and talk about how they don't want people to say alternative witnessing. It says not alternative witnessing. In the past, we sometimes use the word alternative to refer to preaching on the street and in parking lots, places of business and so forth. However, alternative could seem to suggest that such efforts are out of the ordinary, unconventional, or optional. I just thought it was hilarious that they said, if you're not preaching in parking lots or in businesses, it's not in question. It's not even optional. You can't even call it alternative. That's how serious they are when they're talking about this. And I was like, whoa, man, I don't even remember that when I was in. And then there was in a 96 Kingdom Ministry when it talks about preach the good news everywhere. A funny quote was, look for someone who is not in a hurry or who is waiting in a parked car and try to initiate a friendly conversation. This is one of the most awkward forms of preaching. Someone is just sitting in their car, I don't know, trying to beat their meat or something.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
Or you have an old lady trying to put the groceries in her car and you walk up behind her, hello, and she gets freaked out. So yeah, that one belongs in D tier. I guess we'll just say D tier stands for dog shit because it is absolutely horrible. If I had to say one positive thing about this form of preaching, I suppose it would be that it really solidifies in the greater public's mind that witnesses are absolutely out of their goddamn minds. Whenever they run up to people that are in a parking lot, it looks so bad. I'm trying to think of a quick little story I could tell about this. Oh yeah, I forgot. I wanted to tell a couple stories about each one of these, or at least a few of them. And one good one with going back to the house-to-house ministry. The very last time that I went preaching, I made it a goal of mine to do reverse witnessing. And so I made sure I worked by myself. And anyone that was home, I actually just apologized because I was in that congregation for a long time. And a lot of the people that were home were the same people because you usually go out in the same hours. Anyway, I apologized to people. Hey, I was like, hey, I'm actually going to be leaving the Jehovah's Witness faith. And I kind of gave a brief explanation to people as to what I was doing. And I have to honestly say it was probably the most productive morning in field service that I ever had. I had more honest conversations with people, and they were genuinely interested, oh, okay, so, why do you guys go, door to door? Or why don't you guys celebrate, these different holidays? Or why don't you guys do this? And it was so interesting because whenever you go there as the Bible thumping witness, no one wants to talk to you. But whenever your eyes just look normal and you don't hi, would you like to know more about the Bible? And you're just a regular dude, I mean, obviously they thought it was strange and funny because, well, why are you still in it? And it's hard to explain to them shunning and all that. But anyway, it was a super fun experience. And yeah, I did some anti-witnessing. Never do that again, though, because I have like anxiety knocking on people's door. As far as parking lot witnessing, I guess I don't really have a specific story. Just most of the time it would end up in like this weird staring contest where you try and like finesse your way to the side of the car and wave and look friendly, and they just ignore you. And then you wave a little bit more, like, excuse me, and they just keep ignoring you. And then you like really dig your heels in, you're like, excuse me, and then you walk away thinking, man, I don't know how people could be so rude. Yeah, they were the ones that were being rude. Next up on the list is going to be bus stops. Bus stops, to me, could kind of go either way. So I think I'm going to give them a B tier, and I guess I have a few different reasons why. So the first good thing about doing the bus stop witnessing was most of the time we would do that like the early mornings, so from 7 to 9 or 6 to 9 or something like that. And generally speaking, it was mostly like the young pioneers or the younger people that would participate in early morning witnessing.
There is a thought in society that older people are useless.
And it was cool because most of the time you're just driving around, you go get some coffee, you're just kind of talking, or sometimes we would even listen to music. And it was just, hanging out, gossiping, doing regular sort of teenage type of things, right? Now, as far as like the actual method and like what goes into approaching someone at a bus stop, if there's just one person standing there, or maybe even two, and they're pretty far spread apart, it wasn't too bad. You walk up to them, they tell you to get lost, and you get back in the car, and it's easy. But then the other part, which was really hard, was if there was a large group of people. So like say there's 10 people all waiting for the exact same bus stop, and you're like trying to work out in your head, okay, well, should I go in like a ninja and just kind of try and sneak attack each one? Hey, do you want a magazine? Hey, do you want a magazine? Or should I be like some douchebag street preacher who just like wants to hold forth and captivate everyone's attention?
Oh, you don't believe there's a God. The Bible says that if you don't believe in a God,
you're crossing the boundaries of
you're a fool, you ignorant bitch.
And most people had their headphones in, so they just kind of would ignore you anyway if you went with that approach. Okay, next up on the list is let's get an S tier in here. We're gonna put laundromat witnessing. This is the most free S tier that you could possibly have. You could just like drive nice and slow, take the scenic route, and you could definitely make sure that you just take all day long and you just hit some laundromats, and it is just absolutely awesome. The ones that got me started on that were both my great grandma and my grandma, who both pioneered for like 50 years each. And yeah, that's what we would do. You'd run in, leave the magazines, boom, dip out, have some hot cocoa, you were good to go. Next that we'll do is return visits and Bible studies. For me, this is a clean, easy S tier, like no doubt in my mind. Return visits are so easy. You know the person, they give you coffee or cookies. If house-to-house witnessing is like paddling down White Rapids and gushing water, you're trying to survive for your life. Return visits and Bible studies are like taking a leisurely paddle in a kayak through some lily pads, drinking, champagne and eating some ice cream. Like, it's just so easy. And it's honestly like the only saving grace that you'll have if you have like a long day of witnessing planned. You have to make sure you have some long return visits, some long Bible studies, and it's even better if you have someone else that has those long return visits, because then sometimes you can just be chilling in the car. There was times when I would just go to sleep because people would be inside, and I just sleep in the car. Hey, keep that time going, baby. It was awesome. The only reason I might put them in A tier, but I don't think so, is that sometimes you would have people that you knew smoked inside their house. and it would make your clothes just smell like smoke. It's what happens. And that would always be bad if you got blindsided by someone that didn't tell you, like, hey, do you want to go on a Bible study with me on Tuesday? Yeah, sure. Okay. When is it going to be? 4 o'clock. Okay. And then you show up, and then they open the door and you're like,
Are you serious?
and you wore like, your brand new sweater or something because there was some girl you were trying to impress it. Anyway, I still give it a solid S tier though. Bible studies and return visits, that's the way to go. I guess I can regale you with one interesting, funny, kind of scary stories. I had this one Bible study with someone that recently got out of prison. I mean, it was within a week of him getting out, and he saw this as like a sign from God or a calling, and I saw it as a sign from God of some sort of calling. And he was in tears the first time I talked to him. He was just so upset about all the things he did, and he really wanted to, turn his life around. So it was cool. It was fine. Everything was going great. And then over time, I noticed like he started having more and more savory looking people at his house, and his attitude was kind of changing. Anyway, so I went there one time by myself, stupidly, but young, dumb. So I went there one time, and he is, absolutely, I don't know what he just like smoked or injected into his body, but he was out of it. He honestly looked like he just shit in his own hand and smeared it all over his face. He looked horrible. And I was absolutely terrified when I saw him. I'm like, "Oh, bro, you do not look okay. Are you good?" And he just started yelling at me, talking about how God doesn't exist and nothing good is ever going to come out of this world, and just never come back there or he'd kill me. It was horrible. But the funny part about it is, thinking back, I was probably the more delusional person in that moment. But anyway, S tier for Bible studies and return visits for sure. Next up, I guess we could put trailheads, like walking trails or parks. It's a little bit better than parking lot witnessing, just because you're in a park setting, or you're not like walking up to people's cars. They're generally pretty friendly. You usually can just kind of plop yourself down on a bench, or just walk up to someone that's sitting on a bench, and they're not going anywhere. They're not in a hurry. They're usually just kind of relaxing. So I'll give it a C tier. It's not great, making a public spectacle of yourself, but it's at least better than like knocking on someone's window. Let's see. Next up, we'll do another D tier. How about gas stations? Gas stations are absolutely horrible. Honestly, no one's happy to be at a gas station. Really think in your mind, how many times have you pulled up to a gas station and some guy's just like, yeah, I get to spend $60 and drive for 3 days. Hi, friend, how are you? So yeah, we're definitely going to move the gas stations into the despicable, deplorable D tier. A tier is looking a little lonely, so let's go and slap harbor witnessing up there. On vacation in the Netherlands, that I actually did my only port harbor witnessing, and honestly, it was pretty cool. And I don't think I was blinded by being on vacation. It generally meets the criteria for a really high tier, good, high quality preaching method, because you don't do anything and you don't talk to anybody and you don't have to embarrass yourself in public. So you go up on the ship, you set up a little table, you whack all your magazines down there, and then you just sit there and you talk to whoever is with you, because there's 2 of you. And then you work like on a shift basis, so then the other group of people comes, and then you sit in the car and wait, and then you rinse and repeat. So most of the time you're just chatting it up with one of your friends, and overall, I think it's just a great form of witnessing. I wish I could have done it even more. We got an A tier in there now, so now we need to fill in the F tier, and F tier has to be telephone witnessing. Telephone witnessing is terrible. The reason I'm giving this an F tier is because I was the poor sod that was in charge of organizing the territories for my multiple congregations that I was in. And in one of them in particular, there was a few people that could only get out to do phone witnessing. And so they were constantly wanting more phone numbers, more phone numbers, more phone numbers. And honestly, I probably spent 10 hours every month just trying to compile like phone lists. And then they would, the next meeting, they would hit me back and be like, oh, okay, well, I called all these. Here's the ones that don't work. Here's the ones that are out of order. And these people lived in Arizona now. And just like all these notes, it was brutal. So I'm giving it an F tier, and it's completely my own personal bias. But, fuck telephone witnessing. It's the worst. Let's move on. We had an F tier, so let's be a little more positive and give ourselves another S tier. Letter writing. Letter writing is one of the smartest ways, and it's something I never did, but I regret it because it is one of the easiest ways you can possibly have to just get time and be ridiculously comfortable while you're doing it. This optimizes everything that you want in preaching. You don't have to make a fool of yourself in public. You don't have to talk to anybody, and it's like doesn't require like a lot of effort or planning or anything. In one of the congregations I was at, is we had a group of people that would all get together and do letter writing, and they would do this for like 4 hours, but they would show up in their pajamas, let their kids run around and play, burn off energy, get to play with all the other little kids. They would just be, drinking coffee, eating crumpets, and it was just like so easy. And I looked back and was almost like judgmental because I kind of could see like their output, like, oh, well, you could be writing a lot more letters, or you could have a standard one, and you go like, oh no, we like to handwrite them, da 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 da. But they would just take forever, just an hour to write one letter, and you had to handwrite 4 letters in 4 hours. Boom, you kept your time going the whole time in your sweatpants, where I'm out there in the cold, suffering, sometimes in the snow, in the hostile world, and it was just ridiculous. My pioneering versus their pioneering was just on complete different ends of the spectrum. But hats off and drinks up to them, because they were really doing it right. I am properly jealous that I didn't do more letter writing, because it is by far the easiest. It might be like a double S tier. It is just the smartest way to go about your preaching. Something I don't have a lot of experience in, or any experience in, is jail witnessing. My dad did it for like 5 years, so I guess he kind of told me a little bit about it, but he said it was mostly boring, kind of like harbor witnessing, but just a little more depressing because, you're in a jail. Okay, so for another F tier, we have to put schools. I mean, do we really even need to say anything? Preaching in a school? Like, how awkward is that? Now, this is going to be one of those weird ones where I actually don't have any personal experience, because I've never stepped foot in any formal education institution in my entire life. So mostly I'm just going to be using what I heard from other people and my imagination. But I think that is still quite enough to be able to put that in F tier. And F tier should just stand for like, fuck that. Like, this is some foolishness. This is the foolish tier. Outrageous. I mean, it's hard enough being a small kid or even a teenager, and you're trying to fit in, and there's all this pressure going on, and you have crazy, ridiculous, religious, fanatic parents that have all of these wacky rules, so you're already awkward and weird enough. And then to throw on top of that, you have the watchtower telling you,
we look forward to using you more and more in Jehovah's organization as you grow to Christian maturity.
So yeah, F tier for school witnessing. Don't do it. If you have done it, apologize to somebody. Just don't. Stop. It's not good. Next up, we will put business territory. I think business territory is pretty bad. I never enjoyed it. I did it a fair amount, and I always just thought it was awkward and not fun. I think that overall business territory, or business witnessing wouldn't be that bad, but the way that the watchtower tells you to do it makes it so much worse. So here's a quote about what you should do, or what you could say whenever you come to do some business witnessing. It says, endeavor to speak with the person in charge. Be warm and friendly. You might say, We are visiting people at their workplace because it is difficult to find them at home. Give a brief presentation and offer a tract or a magazine or piece of literature. If the person in charge is friendly, ask for permission to speak briefly to the other workers. So basically you walk in and you talk to the receptionist and like, take me to your leader. It's super uncomfortable. Like, and the person in charge of, or the boss, whoever you want to call it, they're not going to have time to like learn about Jesus right smack dab in the middle of their workday. Like they don't have time for that. Next up, we'll do preaching at your place of employment. I think this is just slightly better, than preaching at school because you're a little bit more settled in your personality and yourself. You're not trying to like fit in so hard. You don't quite care as much about what other people think. And honestly, I think most witnesses, at least that I knew, didn't really have the formal 9-to-5 office job. It was more, I'm a window cleaner or a plumber, I work for myself, or I do drywall, roofing. Most of the time it was like that. Or if they did, they worked in a company that had a lot of other witnesses in it. I've never really had a 9-to-5 real job in my life, so I couldn't tell you about that one. So we're just going to slap it in C tier and move right along here. Next up is something I can't provide any quotes on, and that's going to be roving. Now, the reason I can't provide any quotes about it is because either I don't have like the instruction manual that they give to the special metropolitan cart witnessing initiative, because that's where I learned about this, the roving. So how it would work at least in downtown Seattle when I would do it is you'd work in like groups of like 6 or 8 people, and then you just have like a rotating where 2 people are at the cart or 3 people are at the cart, and you rotate in and out. So basically like every 2 hours you get like a 15-20 minute break or something like that. And it wasn't really a break because the instructions that they gave you during Metro Witnessing classes, yes, you had to take a class in order to be qualified to stand next to a cart and not do anything, which I always found pretty hilarious.
He's just standing there, menacingly.
But anyway, whenever you got your 15-20 minute break, they didn't want you just, like actually sitting down because God forbid, like your feet hurt standing in uncomfortable shoes for 2 hours straight. But whenever you were done or on your break, they wanted you to do what they called roving. And the instructions that they gave were bizarre, like properly bizarre. The most normal one was go sit on a park bench. Okay, sitting, that sounds pretty good. And then make sure you sit close to somebody and then try and strike up a conversation and play some literature with them. It's like, I don't want to do anything. I'm on my break. I want to like check basketball scores or read a news article on my phone. Just leave me. Anyway, but the funniest thing is there was this one super overeager brother, and it's funny because I've known him my entire life, and he used to not be like an absolute lunatic for God, but now he just like recently as time went on, he just got way more diluted to where I almost like couldn't even recognize him anymore. He used to be like fun and funny, and then it just became this absolute drone for Watchtower. It was really interesting to see that. But anyway, he's like this big 6'6" Italian guy, and he stands out in the crowd, needless to say. And he'd like carry a messenger bag, so like the strap is like going here, and he'd hold up like some fanned out tracts like on his chest, and then walk around with this really sort of creepy smile thing. And like it just looks so uncomfortable. I don't know how or why he did it, but again, maybe you could say that the positive of that is you look absolutely like batshit crazy. So, maybe people are a little bit torn away from wanting to listen. So yeah, D tier all the way for roving. Cart witnessing was awesome. It's not quite S tier just because of the hours that you have to spend doing it. Usually it was like an 8-hour shift that you'd have to do, and just standing for that long and not talking to anybody, or if you are trying to like witness to people like legitimately, then you're not doing anything whatsoever. The next one is after the convention, going out to dinner. Yeah, so we're going to give this a D tier. The hard part with this, and I think that's why it belongs in dog shit tier, is you wake up at 5:30 so you can get to the convention center by 7 o'clock, because if you're someone that is like involved in like all the behind the scenes, which there's hundreds and hundreds of dudes all involved in, and some sisters, but mostly dudes, all involved in trying to like organize and set up and security and parking and this, that, and the other. So you wake up at 5:30, you're tired, you get there at 7. After the convention ends at like 4:30 or 5, then you have a cleaning assignment for your congregation. So then you work on your cleaning assignment, and then they have an inspection after the cleaning assignment to make sure everything was done right. So basically you're there from like 7 to 7, or like 7 to 6 at the very earliest. So you've been there for 12 hours, being indoctrinated, working for free. You've been in a suit in uncomfortable shoes because you're trying to look good. And then by the time you can finally just go, no, amigo. We want you to make a public spectacle of yourself. Make sure you wear this little name badge that says, loyally follow Watchtower, or whatever the hell they say. And try and preach to your waiter or your Uber driver or whoever. If you're someone that's traveling, the people that are in the hotel. It's ridiculous. So it definitely deserves a big fat D tier from me. Let's go with intercom witnessing. It's kind of just like, it's basically all of the bad things about phone witnessing, but at least there's not someone that has to like organize all the phone numbers and things, because God, is that annoying. Did I make it clear? People that do telephone witnessing that harass their territory servant, they need to go to hell. Like, it's rough, man. Just leave them alone. Just call your neighbor. Call a date line. Call a sex line. I don't care what you do. Just don't call him. He's worn to the bone. Anyway, I'll probably have to do another take of this. Okay, so for C tier, or for intercom witnessing, we're going to give that a C tier. It's kind of boring. Most people aren't interested, but I guess I'm more giving it a C tier so that right now I can add a Seinfeld meme in.
Well, apparently the week after that, you buzzed up some Jehovah's Witnesses and they couldn't get them out of the building.
Anyway, there you have it. Moving right along, let's go with airport witnessing. Airport witnessing is kind of the same thing as doing cart witnessing, but just slightly worse. And here's why. So the same concept. They get permission from, the airport, and they stand at the terminals and try and hand out little tracts and stuff like that. You don't do anything. People are at an airport. They're trying to catch a flight. They're trying to see their family. They got places to go, and they're not interested in you walking up to them like old school. What's that movie where the religious Airplane, where like the religious people are just keep walking up like, do you want to buy this and support our local Jesus church or whatever it is?
Excuse me, sir, would you... Donation to the Reverend Moon? Juice for Jesus?
Read about Jehovah's Witness? How about Buddhism?
No one's doing that. But so the nice thing is you don't have to talk to anyone, but you do have to make a public spectacle of yourself, so that brings it down a notch. And also, whenever you're doing the airport witnessing, you can't like stand there right next to somebody. They want you more spread out, and so you don't even get a chance to talk to anybody. So you basically just stand there and like, do you want a tract? Do you want a tract? Or you can just sit there and be like, kill me. Anyway. So there's my tier list. You have at the very top laundromat witnessing, Bible studies, and letter writing. And then in the absolute worst, telephone and school and some others in between. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Catch you later.